Today, I brought you Derek Iversen. He was a writer on SpongeBob with over 50 episodes to his name. He also have written a lot of other shows. He has over 100 episodes on produced television, and now he works at Warner Bros. Now, questions mode on. Which jobs do you want to do when you grew up? What changed your mind about your job ideas?
Well, when I was growing up, the first thing I ever wanted to be was a fireman. And that's because I was watching a show called Emergency 51. So my early job choices had a lot to do with what I was watching on TV, I guess. Because the next thing I wanted to be was a cop, which is amazing to think about now, because that's like the last thing I could imagine wanting to be. But I wanted to be a police officer, and that was because I was watching Adam 12. These are really old shows. I'm not, I mean, I'm old, but I'm anyway, yeah. So I'm old. And then I wanted to be an astronaut, probably because I was watching some space show like Space 1999. Again, that's when 1999 was the future. Oh God. And then I thought, because I already knew that I got motion sickness sometimes, that maybe actually I wouldn't make a good astronaut. So then I thought, oh, I could be an astronomer, and that would be a lot safer. But it wasn't until fifth grade when I got some creative writing assignments from my teacher, Mrs. Carroll, and she made everybody in class write like little stories, and she gave me really high marks. Back then it was like you would get like a check plus was like the grade if you did a good job, and I would get like check plus 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 like as if that was a real grade. But I was some pretty strong encouragement, and I kind of felt like I like writing, and it seems like maybe this is something I'm actually good at. Because I wasn't good at sports or a lot of other things, but it's like, oh well, I guess I'm good at this. So, and I kind of like doing it, and that's when I started thinking of myself as a writer at about age 11 or 12. Um, and then yeah, I haven't really looked back since, for better and for worse.
You were young.
Hmm.
You already had
It
that
was a
in your
while.
plans. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yes. I've been at this for a little bit.
Which jobs you did before writing, before becoming a writer, if you did? And then about what you worked for as a writer.
Well, I've had a lot of different jobs in my life. I haven't always been paid to write. In fact, I think there are very few writers spend their entire career working as a writer. The first job I ever had that I got paid to do was in high school. I worked at a dry cleaners, and that had obviously nothing to do with writing at all. And it wasn't until I had odd jobs, like I worked at a bookstore in Tucson, and then in Flagstaff, and then it wasn't until I got to LA that I even started getting involved in the entertainment industry. Um, and I started in animation as a production assistant. Well, actually, I started as a driver, and then eventually I got to be a PA, and I worked my way up through the production ladder in animation, and finally was able to get my first freelance writing work. It was an episode of, dang it, I'm spacing the show now. It was a Cartoon Network show back in 2006. I only did one episode of that, and I sold an outline. Uh, and but my first writing job, my first full-time writing job was as a writer on SpongeBob. But that was enough to let the executive producer on SpongeBob, which was the show I was working in production on at that time, it let him know that I could actually do this, and that maybe sooner or later I would be doing it for a living. And by that point, I had already tried once to get a writing job on SpongeBob. I had tried once for that job before, in 2 years before that, and I didn't succeed. But I tried again, and in 2007, I actually made the jump from production coordinator to writer on SpongeBob, which was a big jump, and not an easy one to do. And I remember at the time there was a writing test for SpongeBob where you wrote like you're supposed to write 20 springboards for episodes, and you get paid a flat fee for that. Um, so even if they use any of them or none of them, you got one fee for that test. And I remember at the time I wrote four more than were needed, so I gave him 24. And Paul Tibbett was the producer of the show at that time. I remember he said, "Well, maybe we could use like two or three of these eventually. Like I don't know, most of these I don't think could really be episodes." Ultimately, I'd say maybe 10 or 11 of those became episodes, so he lowballed it. Um, More of those became SpongeBob episodes than he was saying. I think it might have even been more than that. Might have been like 15, because I wrote 56, I think, episodes ultimately of SpongeBob.
A lot.
And I was, yeah, I started in 2007, and then and that was in season six was already underway a little bit. I worked on all of season six, and then season seven, season eight, and when we went from season eight to season nine, the network wanted to reduce the writing staff. They cut the writing staff down from five writers to two. And luckily, I was one of those two that made it to season nine. It was me and Mr. Lawrence, who I know you've interviewed as well. And so we were the two last men standing. And we wrote season nine, and then we were on our merry way.
That's great.
That was fun.
What do you use as an inspiration for writing your stories?
Well, they say to write what you know, which is true and not true. You have to write what you know, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have lived those experiences. Obviously, I have not been an underwater sponge working at a fast food restaurant. So if I just strictly adhered to that philosophy, I wouldn't be able to write much of anything. It's more about um, knowing people and knowing emotions, and also when you're writing for kids, you have to you have to think back to your own experience of being a child, and when everything was new and strange, and how that felt. So, uh, for example, there's an episode in season nine. It's called Lost in Bikini Bottom, and that was based in part on not so much the literal experience that I had when I was a kid of feeling lost or like getting separated from my parents and not knowing where they were, but that the emotions of that and the panic and I'm like, because I remember there was a time when I was at church with my parents, or yeah, I think it was with both of them and my brother, and somehow I got separated from them. And it wasn't like this is not a huge deal. Like in hindsight, I think back on it, and they were probably, like 30 yards away at most. But for whatever reason, there were a lot of people there, and I felt like I thought I had lost them and I couldn't find them. And this was a pretty big church, big complex. So, there was a good 10, 15 minutes there where I really was scared and didn't know where the hell they were. But I also, I was an anxious kid, so I was panicking over nothing. Um, but that informed the experience of feeling lost and that sort of emotional terror is that's the part that I know. That's the writing what you know is the feeling, the experience, and also the way that you interact with other people. That's universal, and so that actually helped to inform that episode. That's just one example, but Um, I'm always thinking back to childhood experiences of, like the first time I ever got rejected by a girl, or, the first time that like I got bullied, or gosh, it wasn't all bad, but or like the like when I discovered a favorite food or something like that. All of these things are experiences that you can use for writing for kids, because that's we were all kids at one point,
Yeah.
and that's how you can relate to a kid and give them a story that's familiar to them, no matter what age you are.
Yeah. Yeah, also for adults and kids and said that like, oh, that happened to me too. Like
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, and yeah, we're all just, adults are really just larger kids to me. We're just putting on an act, trying to pretend like we're all, responsible and smart, and it's a big show.
yeah, we are all kids. Just a
That's right.
bit grown up. But
We're just larger kids
you
with,
have your
bank
inner
accounts.
child hidden somewhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't do spend much time trying to hide that, because that wouldn't do me any good. I mean, I'm still working in kids animation, so
Sure.
I might as well just stay in touch with that inner child, because that's my job.
I know you're writing a lot of stuff right now, right?
I am writing at the moment professionally, and a little bit uh, on the side too, but I don't find a lot of time for it. But yes,
You also made some appearances on TV, even
that's
on
true.
SpongeBob.
Yep, yep. They're sort of blink and you miss it. The cameos. They're very short, but I have been on SpongeBob. That's true. Do you want me to say, or
Yeah, sure.
okay? Well, let's see. The one that I think is the most familiar, even though I wasn't wearing glasses in it, is I was the scary face in the dark. Um,
I
and
remember that
I
one.
think I was Nightlight. It's an episode. It's really a very relatable kid experience of just being scared of the dark. And there's a scary face in the I think it's in the Krusty Krab freezer.
Yeah.
And as he goes into he has to go into the freezer. It's dark in there, and he sees, or at least he believes he sees a scary face, and that scary face is this face, which is kind of ironic because I don't think I really have that scary of a face. But in the episode, I'm doing like this, like mean, like my mean face. So, and I don't have glasses on, and I'm like underlit, like there's a light going up. So it's that creepy face thing that people do. And then there was another one. I think I was like a terrified beach goer, and it was just a still photo, and it was me and a bunch of other crew members were in that. I think there's like a picture with me and Paula Spence, and we're just like, I don't
And you
remember what
were,
it was.
yeah, you were like,
Yeah, oh, that's right. It was a sound. It was like, yeah, there was some deafening sound. That's right. And we're holding our ears like, ah. Yeah. Yep. So that was another one of my cameos. I'm not sure if I might have popped up in some other SpongeBob episode. I'm not sure. I was the voice of Carrot in a short that I co-created called Carrot and Stick that Nickelodeon produced 11 years ago. I
and
was the voice of Carrot.
list some cartoons you wrote for, and maybe also some specific episodes.
Okay, sure. Well, we obviously talked about SpongeBob. I wrote on that. I was also a writer on a show called Sanjay and Craig. I think I've got maybe 18 episodes of that, maybe less. I don't remember exactly, but um, I worked on that for a couple of years. That was another Nickelodeon show. I worked on a show called Home at DreamWorks. and I
Oh
was
yeah, I
yeah,
saw that.
yeah, that's a fun one. I worked on that for a little while, and then I was also a staff writer on a Disney show for a minute called Billy Dilly, or Billy Dilly Super Duper Subterranean Summer. And I did an episode of a show called Wabbit, or well, I guess maybe it was just called Looney Tunes. But anyway, it was a Bugs Bunny, and that was so great just to get to do an episode of Bugs Bunny. I co-wrote that outline with Miles Hinman, my sometimes writing partner, and we also did an episode of Teen Titans Go. Um, we did one episode of Teen Titans Go back in the day, and yeah, I've also, gosh, I've written some Chinese shows. I've worked on a Korean show. Well, it's a Korean American show called Honey in the Wild Woods. I was the story editor of that show, and I wrote a bunch of episodes of that. And yeah, there's been quite a few,
Yeah.
but that's a partial list. Um, and yeah, it's funny. Out of those, one of the still, I'd say one of the most one of my favorites was that Bugs Bunny episode, just because you know, I've been watching Bugs Bunny since I was a kid. He's one of the greatest cartoon characters ever, and what a treat to get to be part of that world, even just in a small way.
Yeah. There's a funny story that happened at work that you can't forget.
Yeah, I thought about this one. Uh, I've got a few funny work stories, and I decided the best one to tell would be one that's embarrassing about me and not about somebody else, because I don't want to embarrass somebody else. So I'll be the one. Uh, so back when I was a production coordinator on SpongeBob, this was season 5. There was an episode called "The Original Fry Cook." Um, and it was a the story was, not that this really pertains to telling you this work story, but the story of the episode was that there was a fry cook that predated SpongeBob. He had been the fry cook way before SpongeBob, but then he comes back in this episode, and SpongeBob is all worried he's going to lose his job to the old fry cook. But it's his turns out his worries are uh, unnecessary. He's fine. But anyway, when we were making the storyboard, the layout supervisor, a good friend of mine named Kenny Pittenger, who now runs the Patrick Star Show, was looking over the storyboard, doing like a final check before we shipped the board. This was back in the day when you would actually send the the physical materials to the overseas studio. Now you just, you know, digitally send it. But back at this time, you would still actually like have to send the physical stuff. So he's going through the board, and when he went through the board, sometimes I would do funny things like put a little drawing in there that's not appropriate or shouldn't be there, but was a funny little joke for us. So there's a panel where the original fry cook is he's like, you see him like cut off from like here, you know, like right around chest or belly level in the shot. So I added another post-it below that, you know, where like you see like the like his legs, and then I just had him with like no pants on. So, you know, he's just like naked, you know, like you can totally see like everything. And you know, it's just hairy and like it looked bad, you know. But it was hilarious. And Kenny, when he's checking the board, now I'm gonna get Kenny in trouble, but Kenny's checking the board and he sees my little post-it that I put on there, and he's like, ah, that's funny. And then keeps going and forgot to take the post-it off. So it ended up getting copied and shipped to Korea like that. and distributed to the network with this pantsless fry cook, where you can see everything. So we get an email from the a network executive, and she's like, "Hey guys, you might not want to, you might want to send a revised storyboard page." She was being very diplomatic about this. She's just like, and then we're like, oh my God, we sent that. Oh, that's so bad. And then I was like,
We're
yeah,
screwed
yeah,
up.
we'll send a revised page. Mm-hmm. Yep, got it. And so of course we then, ditch that page, put it in the shredder, and we fix that up real quick, just rip that stupid post-it off. But so it was supposed to be a little joke for Kenny that got a little out of hand, but I think everybody just had a good laugh about it.
You have a YouTube channel where you post very funny short songs you compose called micro songs. I take the
This is true.
opportunity for saying to go checking them out. And the link is on channel on the bio, probably this video. And
Yeah,
it's also on TikTok. And his nickname it's Micro Songs of Honky D.
micro songs is sort of my uh, the only performance that I do at this point. I miss the stage. I miss performing a lot in a live capacity. But I still get to get my creative yayas out a little bit with micro songs. Those are just something I've been doing, uh, gosh, for a long time. I don't know. I probably came up with my first micro song in like the late 90s. And I have a catalog of over 1,000 of them, but there really aren't that many that are ready for prime time. And I think I'm up to like 75 or 76 I've put out so far. And those are the cream of the crop. And I will only put out ones that I think are worthy. And so I don't know how many more I'm gonna do, but I've still got some silver bullets in the holster. So I'm not done yet.
You're just sticking around on it.
Oh yeah, there are many more micro songs still to come. So yes, please tune it in and let me know what you think.
No spoiler, you have to see it. Let's go to the most quoted question. Everybody asked you probably. What advice would you give to an aspiring animation writer?
Well, what advice would I give to an aspiring animation writer? I've had occasion to do this many times. My advice would be if you're aspiring to write for a living, you should know that it's a difficult path. It's not easy to make it as a professional writer. I think that you should only write if you kind of have a compulsion to do it. If you feel internally driven to do it, you should not write to get attention or to get famous or to get rich because there's not really any guarantee that you're going to get any of those things. Um, it should be its own reward. Like the only reason you should be writing is because you can't not write. Like you have to almost. And and the satisfaction that you get from writing should be in the completion of the work, not getting uh, um, compliments for it or not for getting attention. You know what I mean? Like it should be because you have to, and that's like otherwise you're not going to make it because you have to be really driven to do it internally. It's like the if you're doing it for any other reason, I think you just won't after a while because you'll just drift off. You'll find something that you're more passionate about, or that is more rewarding for you. Um, uh, I don't necessarily think being a writer is a blessing. In a way, it's almost more of a curse, um, because it's a tough road, or it certainly can be if you're trying to pursue it professionally. And then, it has ups and downs. I mean, my career certainly has, uh, but I still get the satisfaction of completing a story and feeling like I said what I wanted to say, or I managed to get something in my heart or my head onto the page, and that is a good feeling. So if you get that same satisfaction from completing something, then you should keep going. Maybe the world needs to hear your voice.
Sure. Putting passion on it. Do you have some stories you wrote you want to tell us? For example, there was a show you wrote called Dog Dogs, and it was super cool.
Oh, well, thank you. Um, yeah, I'm wearing my shirt that whenever I pitch this show, I wear this shirt to pitch it. I don't know if you can see it in the video,
Uh,
but here, I'm gonna just put my shirt up close so you can really see. These are little hot dogs, like literal hot dogs. It's a ridiculous shirt. Yeah, they're like wiener dogs.
that's
It's crazy.
adorable.
Yeah, this is the shirt to pitch Dog Dogs in. So Dog Dogs is, yeah, I've come up with a lot of different show pitches, and Dog Dogs is one of my more recent ones, and you're familiar with it. It's I almost don't want to give away the concept, but I'll tease it a little bit, I guess. The idea is that it's a weird future Earth where all life as we know it is gone except for uh, uh, a, a there's a scientist and his daughter, and he's there was a terrible accident that like eliminated all animal and even insect life on Earth. There were just plants left behind, but this scientist guy, found a way to bring all every creature back. But there's a catch. Uh, they all have to be half dog. Um, so basically, we bring all life on Earth now is half dog. So it's like grasshopper dogs and cat dogs inevitably, walrus dogs, dolphin dogs, um, giraffe dogs, lion dogs, bear dogs, etc. And So it's just absolutely ridiculous. And then there are also dog dogs, which are sort of a perfected humanoid dog. And so they're dogs that walk on two legs and they can talk. And it's what it becomes is sort of this Planet of the Apes situation, where the scientist and his daughter are now in a world where the dogs have taken over, and they're in charge. And so he created a monster that ultimately, or monsters, sort of, that he could no longer control, and now they're in control of sort of their destiny. So anyway, I don't know if I summarized that really well, but that's sort of the concept of Dog Dogs, and it's good, wacky fun. The well, with it a sort of apocalyptic twist. The artist name on Dog Dogs is Richard Weber, and he's fabulously talented. He did some shorts for Nickelodeon called Purple and Brown. He's an Aardman character designer. He does a lot of stuff in stop motion. That's just amazing and brilliant. He does like little clay sculptures that are really funny. He's just like he's just a naturally funny artist, and the people like him in animation are pure gold.
How started your comedy group? From school to your own.
Ah, yes, my comedy group. Well, they were called The People Who Do That. And technically, I guess we never died. Where it's just hibernating. The People Who Do That is a comedy group that I formed after college. And I got inspired to do that because in college I was in a sketch comedy group at the University of Arizona called Comedy Corner. And uh, I discovered in that time that I love doing sketch comedy. It's like my favorite kind of performance. And I learned so much from doing that. I learned a lot of great writing from that, actually. I learned how to write comedy with those people. And so I formed my own comedy group because I wanted to keep doing that. And we, after much debate, we decided our name would be The People Who Do That. We formed in 1994 in Tucson, and we went on to do a lot of shows in Tucson. And I formed uh, deep friendships from that. I still to this day work with Miles and Kim from that comedy group. They are writing partners of mine now. Um, and actually, another old pal from that group, John Seymour, I just saw him last night. We got lifelong friendships out of that. We did a lot of shows together. We reformed when we all moved out to LA, and so our lineup changed a little bit, but we did a bunch of shows here too. We also did some parodies of NPR called National Corporate Radio. We came out with albums that were full-length parodies of a show on NPR called All Things Considered. Our version was called All Things Condescended, and and we actually got some attention from that. We got some national coverage. NPR itself was a little shy about talking to us because I don't think they enjoyed us mocking them so hard. But we got airplay on a local radio station called KPFK, which is very left progressive radio station here in Los Angeles. Uh, and I would never say that I quite made enough money or got enough attention doing sketch comedy to make a living at it. It was always a hobby, and I would have loved to make a career of it, but I never quite figured out how to do that. But I sure had a great time, and I learned a lot, and I made lifelong friendships, so I got a lot out of it.
We're finished.
That's it.
That's it.
Oh, well, that was a delightful time. Well, thank you for asking me these questions. I hope they were illuminating and maybe even fun for whoever decides to tune this in.